The NDE happened in December of 1991. I was 31 years old. But my opening to spirit happened a lot earlier than that. I remember as a kid walking to school and putting my hands like against the bushes sort of and feeling like, oh, okay, this sounds crazy, but it's as if they're coming to me and saying, hello, hello, good morning. That's how I used to sort of interact with the natural world. But I didn't know what was going on. So, December 1991, and it's actually the day of my grandmother's funeral. And I wake up very early in the morning and I have a vision. And it's not a dream, it's a vision. And when it's a vision, it doesn't matter how many years pass. I never wrote it down until much later, actually, like 25 years later. But I remember every detail. So I was just between sleeping and awaking, and I saw myself and my husband. We were walking down a sidewalk, and there was a huge snowstorm. Now, December in Quebec, there are huge snowstorms. So this is like that time of year was something that could totally happen. And I saw that this car came down the boulevard, lost control, and hit us from behind. And I saw the color of the car, I saw the make of the car, and I heard my husband scream. I heard the words that he said. So I heard his voice. And then I woke up. And then I thought, wow, what a weird dream. Like, who gets hit while walking down a sidewalk? And that is exactly what happened about 15 hours later. So we were at this reception. The timing was so divinely perfect that we put our coats on, came down the stairs. There was a huge snowstorm out. We started walking down the sidewalk, and there were a lot of people in this house. So all the cars were parked everywhere. There was one little opening for a single car garage. I didn't see the car this time because I was walking down the sidewalk. I mean, I never made the connection at that point until this car lost control, jumped over and hit us. And it's when I heard my husband say the exact words I had heard him say that morning, I was like, and I'm flying through the air one way. So I'm flying through the air over the front, like down the boulevard, and he flies through the air, up, over, breaks the windshield, and goes back to the other side of the car and into a snowbank. I actually think about that sometimes, and just that to me was relevant because that was actually the moment of total rupture of that marriage. Because as I'm flying through the air, I'm saying to myself, boy, somebody or something has gone to a lot of trouble to warn me, to prepare me. So I'm not going to freak out. I'm not going to worry. I'm just going to go with it. And I did. And I just flew through the air and then went about 35 feet down the road, and no other cars hit me, which was amazing. And then I came out of my body. It was just the most natural thing. There I am, and I'm looking down, and I see this thing on the road. I said, wait a minute, I know that coat, because it was my beautiful, amazing red coat. And my grandmother, whose funeral was that day, had always said every woman should wear a red coat. And I had my red coat on that night, and that coat was so big and thick, it went all the way down to my ankles. So I'm looking down, and I see this red coat, and I'm like, well, wait a minute, that can't be me, because me is here. And that was so cool to me. I had all my memories, all my thoughts, all my emotions. The whole me was not in that lump on the ground. I was looking at it, and then I turned around and I looked at all these people. All the people started coming out of the house. Everybody was frantic and screaming, and here we were, a couple, both hit. We have a 1, 3, and 5-year-old at home, so it was like everybody was freaking out. Ambulances, and it was very chaotic scene. And I'm looking and I'm looking and I'm trying to talk to people, and I'm trying to say, hey, I'm fine. Look, I'm here. Nobody could hear me. And I was worried about all these women coming out of the house in this huge snowstorm with no coat on. So I'm like, why don't you have your, it's such a mundane detail, but that's the kind of thing you think of when you see all these people coming out onto the street, just dressed like in their, Christmas clothes, whatever. And then I realized nobody's hearing me. And I just moved away. The scene didn't matter anymore. None of that mattered anymore. I just felt light and I felt wonderful and I was surrounded. And you know what's so cool? I can feel it now. And I do sound healing now. And this is a kind of feeling I really love to bring to everybody who comes to sound. Because why do you have to wait for that kind of experience to feel this? You can feel it. So anyway, I just felt it there. Wow. I was enveloped completely in light and in love, and I was just taken away from that scene. And then this figure appeared in front of me, and she, I don't know. Because of my background, I thought it was Jesus, but it could have been just, a guide. It could be a master. It could be, who knows? But it was a figure, and it did feel male, and he was about 9 feet tall. And I didn't see his face. And he addressed me by name. That's the part that always gets me. He knew my name. So he said, Andrea. And I went, I was so shocked that he knew my name. I thought, who am I? I'm such a little nothing. How is it that you know my name? And he said, Andrea, do you want to stay or do you want to go back? And I said, I have to go back. I have 3 little kids. I must go back. And then he asked me again. And I said, even if every bone is broken, I have to go back. And then I was thrown into something I can only describe as a vortex. It really was shaped like this. And it was this massive whirling thing. And I had hands and I had feet, because I was using them on the edges of this thing to keep myself from being thrown out into oblivion, or I don't know where I was going to get thrown. But there was so much force in this. It was like it was like a tornado, and you're in it and you're holding on for dear life. And I remember that so well. And then bang, I was thrown back, slammed back into my body. And I woke up. And you know that I didn't break one bone. I only had a run in my pantyhose. But my body was wrecked. And it took me a long time, a lot of therapy and all that to recover. But it didn't take me long to know that this had happened for a reason. And so as they were putting us in to the ambulance, I remember, you got the neck brace and the whole thing, and they've immobilized you, and they think that maybe you have so many broken bones. And I remember looking over at my husband like this, like hardly being able to look. And I remember thinking, this marriage is over, because I know that my life matters, and I am not going to live it without love. That's it. And that was it. And he did leave. Took a few months, but he did. But very soon after he left, it's interesting because actually my grandmother waited. Now that I think of it, she waited till he was gone. I never thought about that before. And then she started to talk to me. And she said to me, the first thing she said to me is, go get my books. So I started hearing my dead grandmother. And she said, go get this, go get that. And then she said, we're going to teach you. I'm going to teach you patience and tolerance, humility, and like all these different virtues. She says, you're going to learn. And she started talking to me. And one day, I don't remember when this was exactly, about 5 years in, she says to me, go get this picture. It's at your mother's. And she told me exactly where it was, on a bookshelf at the bottom. Go take that picture. Go make a logo. We're going into business. I'm like, what? I go to my mother's. I look on the shelf. Right there is a beautiful picture of my grandmother. And then I say, well, what are we going to do? And she says, we're going to make granola. because she had always made her homemade granola. My mother made it, I made it. And at this point, I didn't know this yet, but my husband, who then was my ex-husband, was going to declare bankruptcy and stop all child support. But I didn't know, but my grandmother knew. So I had to take that leap of faith, and I remember money was really, really tight, and she wanted me to make a logo, and I'm like, but Grandma, how do I make a logo? Like, that costs money to hire an artist, this, that. Anyway, one thing after another, I made the logo, and we started making granola. I started at home, and she just made it happen. One thing after another, one nudge here, one nudge there. I go to the vet, and I meet a woman who wants a product for a very big event that she's doing for a breakfast. I said, oh, well, I make a great product, but she didn't know that I was making it at home in my little oven. So sure enough, I made the product for this special event, which happened to be at this huge hotel in downtown Montreal. And then my grandmother says, well, call the chef. I'm like, well, I don't even know how to call a chef. I don't even know who the chef is. How do you reach a chef of a hotel? And I started calling. And 2 weeks later, I reached the chef. And he says, I never am in the hotel at breakfast, ever, because he does dinners and all the big fancy meals. But he said, I was there that morning, and I'm the one who spooned that granola into all those bowls. And then he said, and I hated it, but come and see me tomorrow morning at 6. So I'm like, oh boy. So the logistics of having a 6 a.m. meeting when you have 3 little kids at home to get ready for school and lunches and all this, like just the logistics of trying to extricate yourself for a 6 a.m. meeting. I did it, and I went. And he looked at me, and he didn't know that I was making granola at home. He didn't ask me. He didn't ask for a business card. I didn't have a business card. He looked at me and he said, you have something. He said, people come here and they want an experience. They want this and they want that and they want that and they want that. So go home. Can you make that for me? I said, absolutely, I can make it for you. I had no idea what I was doing. And that is how I started my company, Grandma Emily's Granola. And that's how I ended up supporting my 3 children. And my grandmother was a huge support. So the near-death experience itself was very short. It was a vision. It was more than a premonition. And it was an invitation to take care and do something with the rest of your life. Don't waste yourself. And then it just opened up this portal to talking to spirit. But yet it didn't feel really unusual or strange, because even as a little kid, I had felt that I could feel things from the natural world. But what I didn't know was that my grandmother was actually with me. I found this out by going to a bookstore one day. Man, if you want to have explanations for things, go into a used bookstore and ask, please guide me to the book that I most need to read, and then just follow the nudge. That's what I did. And I landed with this book in my hand that explained how sometimes when a soul has not finished the storyline they came to play out, if there is a willing party on this side, they can merge. And so my grandmother said to me, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. And so sure enough, I felt her with me. We called the company Grandma Emily's Granola. Now, I won awards as an entrepreneur because people thought it was so amazing, but it's not true. It was my grandmother pushing me. It was her behind me all the time. I had to do the work, but I wasn't alone. So it seemed crazy that I took these risks, but they were calculated risks, you see. So that's what happened. And because of this interaction with her, I took risks and I grew the company. And I went from making this product in my little kitchen at home to selling across the country. And then, so it's more than just about the NDE. You see how the NDE was just like, it was just like the opening of the flower. And I suppose I could have just left it there. But when you start to open yourself to spirit, when you really actually start to feel these connections, to know you're not alone, and especially to ask, when you ask, you know, people used to say to me, how do you get your staff? I would say, I ask. Like, that's crazy. What do you mean you ask? Because I always knew that I had the most amazing team in the invisible realm that was there to help me. And as long as I was making choices for my highest and best good and choices in the direction of joy, they would be there for me. They would second me. They would find, I even would ask for mundane stuff like, I need an office manager, or I need somebody who's, you know, skilled in production management or whatever. And they would bring me the right people. It's amazing. And it just happened over and over again. And as my company grew, I knew, because it was exhausting to run a business, very exhausting to start from nothing. I had no credit. Nobody would give me any credit. So I did something called bootstrapping, which is you buy and you sell and you buy and you sell and you save your pennies and save your pennies. And then eventually I wanted to sell. And I had zero debt, and I had a beautiful little gem of a company that was selling granola and other products coast to coast. I had a team of 16 people. I had a great factory, because when you're in food, it's very demanding. You have to have a certain type of factory and policies and procedures and everything. We did it all, one step at a time. And I sold the company. And how did I get a buyer? I asked. I just asked. And you have to trust. There's no question. Things don't always happen right away. Like Spirit used to tell me all the time, Andrea, patience. You gotta have patience. And sometimes I didn't have enough patience. And I had to learn that things work in spirit time. They don't work on our time. They work in spirit time. And when you think of all the different connections and things that had to happen for me to have that accident, be on my own, make that logo, start that company, meet that chef, where I had to give away product that morning at that breakfast. I didn't have the money to do it, but I did it. And that chef, when I went to see him, he became like a mouthpiece for Grandma Emily's granola. It was the most craziest thing. And he was so well respected. He calls me up one day and he says, Andrea, give me some samples. We're meeting like all the top, 12 chefs in the country. I said, no. I gave him samples. He was my salesman. He's the guy. I said to him, are you okay if I, contact them all one by one afterwards? He's like, yeah. And that's how my business grew. So, yeah, there's lots of stories about how just trusting and following the nudge is what, creates the joy. It creates the opportunity. Yeah. So I was exhausted. I asked for a buyer and I got one. And I was gone. What do? You put a knapsack on your back and you get out of town. And that's what I did. And I went to Italy and I was there for 1 month. I had no return date. Like I was just going to go and have fun. And finally I was free. And I got a call that my daughter was ill and I had to come back. I was only gone for 1 month, but I thought, wow, there again. If I had been running this company, I wouldn't have had the time to be with her 24/7. But the company was sold. So I came home and I took care of my Chloe for about 10 months. And then she passed away. And it was hard. It was very hard. But there's so, when you know that there is no such thing as death, when you really know it, when you can really, really walk that talk, then your approach to the whole thing is so different. You still grieve. You still grieve the loss. You grieve the physical loss. But there's a big but there, because you really still feel the connection, and you still can write each other letters. And that's how that book with Chloe started. I wrote her a letter, and I rented this little place to heal after she passed. And I said, Chloe, you would love this place. It's a little tiny thing, one little room right on the water's edge. It's just what I need. I've rented it for a month. And I went to burn this letter in my little wood stove. And I hear her say, Mom, don't burn that letter. And then she said, Mom, you are so easy to find, it's a joke. Those were her first words. Not very pious and divine, just you are so easy to find, it's a joke. I said, what do you mean? And she said, you're light, Mom. When you pray, you emit light. I'm like, no. She's like, yeah, it's true. It's true. Prayer is real. Thoughts are real. You know what I always try to tell people? Everything you think, say, and do is known. Everything. Nothing is hidden. Nothing is hidden. If people only knew that, can you imagine, Natasha, how much more discerning they would be with the things they think, say, and do? It would change our world. If people realized that when you whatever, shortchange a cashier by 10 cents or whatever it is, everything is known. You're only compromising your own integrity by doing that. So I came back to take care of Miss Chloe. It's funny, I call her Miss Chloe all the time, but when she was alive, I used to call her my sister. It was so weird. I'm like, she's not my sister, she's my daughter, but I would slip all the time and call her my sister, my sister. And one day I had a vision, because I said, why do I keep calling her my sister? And I saw myself and Chloe in another lifetime. So these are some of the gifts that do blossom from an NDE. Is this kind of, thinning of it's not even a veil. It's just that it's this, you kind of are in more than one place at a time, like in both worlds. And I saw the two of us, and we were sisters, and I was her older sister, and she got sick, and I could not handle it. And I had vowed and I had told her that I would be there for her, that I would take care of her, but I wasn't. And I let her down and I left. And so in this life, I knew when she got sick, I said, I will be there for you all the way. And it was like a huge drive in me. So when we get those kinds of nudges and those kinds of feelings, something is really pulling you, you got to listen to it. There's a reason. There was definitely a contract between us, a soul contract. If you want to know about soul contracts, this is a huge eye-opener to learn that we do plan the basic sweeping trajectories of our life. Robert Schwartz wrote a great book, Your Soul's Plan. Everybody should read that book. Really amazing book. He's written a couple, Robert Schwartz. So in this vision, I knew I had failed her. So in this life, I knew I had to stick with her and stay with her. And the funny thing is, she made it really hard. She really did. She was I'm sorry, Miss Chloe, but it's true. She was not an easy patient at all. But I stuck with her. I stuck with her. And on the last night of her life, she was in the hospital, and I went to the nurse's station. I said, I think this is it. And the nurse said, no, this isn't it. But her father was sleeping in her room. So I said, okay. So I slept in a chair in the hospital. And then at one point I woke up and I went in her room, and she had been like completely in a coma, not moving, not nothing. And there she is sitting up, and she is it was actually something to see, trying to separate her spirit from this body. She was trying to separate. She was sitting straight up and doing this really heavy breathing. And then I heard in my head, her father is fast asleep on the sofa. He hears nothing. I heard in my head, Mom, please go. I'm like, okay, Chloe, I get it. So I left the room and I went back to that chair. And then a few hours later, I actually fell asleep. And a few hours later, I was hit by this tsunami of joy. It was like a major hit to the chest. And I opened my eyes and I felt this joy. So much joy. And I knew it was done. And I went back in her room and it was done. And I was like, wow, Chloe, it's really true. Like, this thing is really not you. And I could feel her, and she was standing right beside me. And she said, Mom, thank you for being so calm. You helped me. So there's a really good lesson in that for me, and maybe for others, is that when somebody is transitioning, is to respect that. And it's hard. The loss is huge. I get that. I spent a long time that night staring at the forearm of her left arm and memorizing all those little freckles. And like, I know that pattern, because I knew that that part of her was leaving, was gone. But she was there and she was with me. And I moved into this little place and she started talking to me. And we started having a conversation back and forth and back and forth. And she would wake me up at about 4 a.m. and she did this really annoying thing that she used to do when she had a body, which was dig her chin into my shoulder. And she would say, okay, Mom, open your computer. And this, I have to say, is the coolest thing that has ever happened. I mean, with all the amazing stuff. When you write a text, you write an email, you're making all kinds of mistakes. I would open my computer and she would say, okay, close your eyes. And she would say, take dictation. We're going to write a book, which we had discussed that before. And I really didn't want to do that. I said, let's just chat. Why do we have to write a book? I know. And I never made a spelling mistake. I would type with my eyes closed at 4 o'clock in the morning. I told her, I said, Chloe, if you are not going to let me edit your words, because she told me you can't touch my words, I said, they better be perfect and clear so I can really hear you perfectly. And I would just open the computer and start typing, and it was perfect. And we did end up writing a book. And I didn't want to write a book. I'm teaching entrepreneurship at university by that point. Everybody thinks I'm such a great, entrepreneur. And meanwhile, I had to write the book. And I'm so glad that I did, because it's helping other people, not just parents with kids in spirit, but all kinds of people. And different people get different messages from this book, stuff that I didn't even think of. And anyway, here's the book. This is it. If anybody wants a copy, I always give a free PDF to anybody. And it's funny, she told me one day, she says, Mom, I'm pissed at you. By the way, she doesn't speak to me this way anymore. She doesn't speak to me in like human slang way anymore. One day she was like, Mom, you can't talk about me like that anymore. I'm not that. I am not that personality. I am, I have returned, and I am not that cheeky, difficult. No, so please don't, refer to me. That took me a little while to sort of go, oh, there was a kind of a new relationship together. But she said, how come you didn't put my name? She says at the bottom. I said, you're right, Chloe, I didn't. She said, because really, this is a co-written book. It should be, both our names at the bottom. So I said, okay, sell 100,000 copies and I'll change the cover of the book. But doesn't matter. So ever since Chloe passed, I have been getting amazing signs. Now, in her case, we had time to talk about this. You don't always have the time, and you don't have the inclination, to talk about, okay, what is our special phrase going to be? But Chloe and I talked about it because we knew she was leaving. And I used to take her, even from the hospital. I used to get her out of the hospital. It was a whole production with wheelchairs and everything. And we would go to the drive-through and get an iced cappuccino. So I said, Chloe, it's clear. Our phrase has to be iced cappuccino. So by the way, I suggest everybody with your loved ones, make a phrase. Make a phrase. But the thing is you have to remember it. So it's really got to be something relevant to the two of you. So Chloe and mine was iced cappuccino, clear. And then I started getting iced cappuccino signs. Like I would take her brother grocery shopping. He doesn't drink coffee. I would take him grocery shopping, and at the checkout, he'd have all these bottles of iced cappuccino in his cart. I'd say, Matthew, what are you doing with all these iced cappuccinos? He'd say, I don't know, Mom. I don't even know why they're there. And sometimes I used to take the metro at night, and I would walk up these steps, and there are thousands of people who use these steps every day. And I'd be coming up these steps, and right there in the middle of the step would be a bottle of iced cappuccino. But the coolest iced cappuccino one happened not too long ago. So my son actually, he suffers from different mental illness, and he was in the psych ward of the hospital. And so I'm in there with him, and he's really having a rough day. And I just say, Chloe, can you give me a sign that you're here? And it didn't even take 5 seconds. And one of the other people that was in the psych ward, one of the other men, starts screaming, get me an iced cappuccino, get me an iced cappuccino. He's screaming it so much at the top of his lungs, I'm like shocked. I'm like, okay, stop. And boom, he stopped. And so that really got me thinking about the possibilities of telepathy and how our thoughts communicate so instantly. So all this phenomena is happening to me, my grandmother and Chloe, and this and that, and I want to try to make some sense of it. So I decide to go to this school in England called the Arthur Findlay College of Psychic Studies. Now, I don't even know anything about the school. I didn't know that all the top mediums and psychics in the world go there for refresher classes, and I'm just there. I just felt like boom, boom, boom. I had to go. And I'm sitting down one day, and we're practicing. So you always have, like, all through the day, you have one-on-ones with different students learning to do mediumship. And one day, this man is sitting in front of me, and he's talking all about Chloe, and then he says, you are going to find a piece of carved wood, and it is going to blow your mind. And I had no idea what he was talking about. And then I'm in this house, so none of Chloe's things are in this house, except for a couple pieces of clothing that I brought, but none of her stuff is here. And all of a sudden, one day, on my night table, I find this. And this is hers. And it was for her long, long hair. It's wood, and it's carved, and it's got a lovely piece of pink quartz on the end. And it was Chloe's. And the cool thing is that man gave me that message in like 2016. And I didn't find this till like 2021. So, I don't know how it happened, but all I know is this thing showed up on my night table, and I was like, oh my God. And I knew right away that was the carved wood that he was talking about. Yeah. So that's the kind of life I live. And Miss Chloe pushed me and said, Mom, you've been doing sound, and it's time for you to come out of the closet and do it for other people. So that's what I do now. I do sound meditations, facilitations, and it's really extraordinary what the vibrations can bring and how, for parents with kids in spirit, it can lift them up enough to have these really beautiful, they call them ADCs, after death communications. And they have so many of them, and they talk about them after. Some don't talk about it. They just live whatever they live, and that's fine. And some do talk about it because they want others to know that it's really powerful. And so that's what I'm doing now. I work with cancer patients because Chloe had cancer, so that's close to my heart. And I work with parents, with kids in spirit. That's close to my heart. And just about 2 months ago, I thought I could work with autistic kids. I know this could help them. Less than a week later, I get an email from one of the mothers. I didn't know she had an autistic child, but she says, you know, I have an autistic child and I think you could help her. And so we started just one-on-one. She's with her daughter and I'm here. It's on Zoom and it's really cool. So it's like anything, you have to keep growing and practicing and creating. And for me, it's all about service. It's just about being of service. And it's really so much fun. So that's why my book is free. Every sound session is always free. And yeah, I'm just here to serve. That's my story.
That is absolutely incredible. Thank you for sharing. Just going back, when you were staying in that little place for a month with that guy, John, what
Yes.
happened?
That's why
I
I have
forgot.
to write a sequel because everybody wants to know what happened with John. So what happened is I didn't stay for a month. I stayed for a year and a half. And yeah, we fell in love. He would walk across the lawn in the morning. And he was so cute, you know, and he'd bring me a little coffee and we'd sit outside and we'd sort of discuss who had the better view. And I always thought I had the better view. And he had the big house and I had the tiny little house, which was so perfect. And then after a year and a half, I left. And then during COVID, I came back. I called him up, and he's a sailor, and I called him up for his birthday. And the first thing he says to me is, let's go sailing. So then I knew if we were going to go sailing, we were going to talk. There's something about pushing off. Oh, wow, that's what Chloe's telling me. Mom, that's what this is like. This is like pushing off from the shore. Yeah, you're right, Chloe. So John and I get on his boat and go for a sail. And guess what? I ended up moving back in. I now live in the big house with John, which is where I'm speaking to you from. And I still rent the little house. And the reason I do that is because I do a lot of live sound healings in there. And I have friends who want to come because it's such a healing place. And people come and they stay. And they don't have to pay. I just ask them to make a donation to the cancer center where I go every week. And that's what we do. So I'm here. Imagine, since August of 2020, I am back with John. And yeah, it's really good. Really, really good.
It's a nice happy ending so far.
So far, you know, everything is always a work in progress, but it is nice. And it's challenging in a way too, because I really continue to want to grow and expand. I have this new practice. Oh, I want to share this practice with everybody. Every day, I meditate for 30 minutes and I have a meditation buddy. So we don't meditate together. She's doing her thing, but when she does her 30 minutes, she sends me an emoji. And when I do my 30 minutes, I send her an emoji. And it's such a mundane thing, but it keeps you on track. It keeps you meditating every day. So my suggestion is find a buddy and give yourself that 30 minutes. Try to do it really early in the morning. Like I write down the stuff that I get. I don't always. Sometimes it's on scraps of paper. It's all over the house. But there's this is what I wrote down today, like just beautiful. I'll just read it. September 2nd. If you do stuff to sabotage your own well-being, you are choosing sabotage. Spirit witnesses patiently and waits. When it gets uncomfortable enough, you shift. Sorry, there's a plane going overhead. Wanting peace, expansion, joy, wanting out of fear and feelings of lack. Then Spirit steps in. So, go straight to calling in the Holy Spirit in every instance. Bring in that peace, resolve that misunderstanding, live in joy. It is tougher than it seems, since the dense energies of insecurity and doubt are alluring, addictive. Push out, and they underlined that one, push. Breathe, walk, pray, garden, cook, smile, sing, meditate, and they evaporate. We love you. So those dense energies, we have lots of ways to get rid of them. When they started saying, breathe, walk, pray, garden, cook, smile, sing, I'm like, yeah, it's not like we're left without any tools in our toolbox. We got tons of tools. We just have to push out past the fear, past the dense energy, do something, even hum, whatever, dance in the kitchen. And those dense energies evaporate. It's like they're only powerful when they're having that hold on us. But the minute we decide, sorry, you are not going to get the better of me, they don't have the power anymore. That's amazing. It really works. Yeah. That was this morning. Sometimes I get
That's
all,
beautiful.
yeah.
Tell
And
me, Chloe said that you were easy to find when you were praying. I heard that like we have a cord above our head that's like linked to the mate, whatever, to the universe. Is that kind of like a cord that she could see and follow? I mean, like what would that
I don't
look
know.
like?
What she told me was it was light. She said, your light shines, Mom. Your light shines. And I have had people take pictures while I was doing sound on Zoom with the most unbelievable light show going on around me. Like, where does all this light come from? And it was fascinating. I couldn't see it, but most of the time my eyes were closed anyway. But everybody on the screen could see it. So there's a lot more going on than we realize. And I do believe that anybody we've loved, we are linked with, we are attached to. Even every relationship, even if it's ended, there was love there. There was sharing there, you know? And it's kind of a nice way to make peace with the ending of something by realizing, oh yeah, maybe it wasn't meant to be, you know, in this lifetime for the long haul, but there was love. Yeah. But I don't know about the cord. I just know that what she said to me is, Mom, your light shines. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. And I think you mentioned the soul contracts as well. I know that like you know one lifetime you can be the mother and the next lifetime the daughter and then like you said the sisters. So it's incredible.
Isn't
and
it?
and I am sure that this whole contract was actually meant to happen. Well, it
Yes.
could have been changed, but that was one of the outcomes, I think.
Oh, yeah. She told me once because funny thing was Chloe passed at 28. But I thought ever since she was little that she would die at 19. I just had that thought in my head. It was always there. And when after she passed, I said, Chloe, how come you hung around so long? Like in palliative care? Like, why did you stick around? What was the purpose? And she told me in my head, it was so fun because I could ask her all kinds of questions like, where are you? And what are you doing? And what do you see? And she said, Mom, I stuck around for you. It was for you to have the experience of the palliative experience and how incredible that experience is. Yeah. to have this, whole family care. And truly, like, we are all equals on the palliative ward, you know? It's really something. But that was her answer, was she stuck around for me. And what I found out is, and this I didn't find out from Chloe, but I found out that we have potentials for various exit points. Like, you might have had at one point a big illness. That could have been potentially an exit point, but for whatever reason, you decided no, you weren't going to leave then. And these are things that we work out with our invisible team. We are really not alone. Like, we just aren't. We're loved and we're cared for. And I got to tell you a guardian angel story. So one night I'm meditating, and it's the full moon, beautiful full moon. And I'm meditating and I'm saying, I know you're not human. And I know you don't have a name, but I would love a name, because then I could call you by name. And it's, we're human. We like to label things. So I hear in my head this word, Arizi. And I think, oh, hi, Arizi. I like that name. It's kind of like, I don't know, it sounds like a little bit foreign, like Arabic or something. Arizi, Arizi, Arizi. I look it up. Only like 2 days later, I look it up. I said, I wonder what this word means. And you know what it means? Moonlight. I said, you got me. It was a full moon. So it was like a joke, It was to have fun with the fact that I asked for a name. My human side wanted a name. Yeah. Easy. Yeah.
If somebody wanted to connect with their spirit guides or team, what would you suggest that they do?
Well, for sure, you have to have a pen and paper with you, okay? Because you're going to get things. And if you don't write them down, you are totally going to forget them, okay? That's the first thing. Like, if I hadn't written down that message from this morning, gone, okay? And then I suggest you just sit. If you can't sit in silence, if you can't meditate in silence for 30 minutes, try it for 5 minutes. And if your mind is wandering, say a prayer. You can even say any prayer you want. You come up with the prayer. It doesn't have to be the Lord's Prayer or whatever. I happen to love the Lord's Prayer, and I say it over and over. But you can say, God is my fortress and my vault. You can say whatever resonates with you. I am part of all that is, whatever resonates with you. And say it, and sit, and breathe. And if you have to put the timer on because you want to know that you're going to do that 5 minutes, put the timer on. And ask, what is in my highest and best good to know? What would I most benefit from knowing today? And just sit, and just trust. It's hard. The trust part is hard. And one of the best ways to receive answers from spirit is being around water. Water is such a conductor. Brushing your teeth, in the shower, and guess what? Washing the dishes with no gloves, like with your hands in the water. Water is amazing as a conductor. Yeah, I did these experiments where I had like a glass of water. I asked a question, and then I would drink a whole glass of water, and I would feel that question just kind of go into every cell of my body. Like, I really embodied that question. And then I would sit and just enjoy. And maybe I wouldn't get any answer then, but I would have that paper and pen with me. And when I would hear something, I wouldn't think, oh, maybe it's me, maybe I'm exaggerating, maybe I'm saying this because I want to. You have to believe. Doubt is a tough one. Doubt is our biggest obstacle. Yeah.
What did they say? For those who believe, no proof is necessary, and for those who don't, no proof is possible.
Exactly. And once you let go of doubt, it's like this whole amazing universe of possibilities opens up to you. You realize, wow, everything is conspiring. Everything around me is here to create this most magnificent experience. And it's so short and it's so amazing. Yeah, you just start to see everything as magic. Yeah, everything is a miracle. Everything is. Yeah, yeah.
I like that. It makes sense that, when people are in the shower, they get their ideas. That makes
Yes,
sense because you're with water. I didn't put that together. Yeah, that
yes.
makes sense.
One day I'm brushing my teeth, just brushing my teeth. You really aren't thinking, when you're brushing your teeth. And I hear in my head, tell them I'm fat and happy. What? Tell them that, oh, that's a really good assurance that it's spirit talking to you. They repeat and repeat and they learn, eh? They learn that in order to get through to us, they have to keep repeating the same phrase because we are so thick. We don't realize that they're trying to talk to us. Plus, we have so much noise coming from all of our gadgets and all of our human experience. So they repeat. And he said that one phrase, tell them I'm fat and happy. He must have said it 10 times. I put my toothbrush down and I'm like, who is this? Because it just was not my thought. That's a really good way to know it's not your thought. Yeah. And he gave me his name. And I went, oh my goodness. I vaguely knew his mother. He had passed 2 weeks before. And he said, would you take a letter? And I did. And that was hard because, how do you go to somebody and say? But anyway, I've done quite a bit of that work, but I prefer doing sound and helping people connect themselves with their kids.
Yeah.
And even having physical experiences, hugs and conversations and touching. And yeah, I like that a lot better. It
Yeah, I
empowers
know that.
everybody. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the sound healing is on another level. And I've seen people with a tuning fork that they put on the body parts and it actually heals the body parts. But I
Yes.
wonder, would that work if you were listening to, with your headphones in, or do you
Yes.
actually have to have the physical vibration?
Actually, both, because with the headphones, you feel the vibration physically. I have
Okay.
people who come to sound healing from all over the world and they feel it. Yes, if you're in the room, I do my little sounds next door, right, in a little house. It's really special. There's no question. But we can do it on Zoom and it's very powerful. People feel it. Yeah, yeah, they do.
Yeah, there's nothing like a sound bath.
It changed my life completely. I just realized it's like I really was like an onion peeling and peeling all these layers. And now it's like I can be a witness to things, even in my relationships, I just like relationships. What's her name? Marianne Williamson. She said it. Oh, what a great line. Relationships are assignments. Here in this school, there are assignments. Some are like, easy assignments. You'll get an A plus, and some you're going to work. You're going to study and research and to do it right. So relationships are assignments. And then you just realize that, all this stuff going on around you isn't about you, you know? And the relationships work a lot smoother.
That's a very nice way to put it.
Yeah.
Could be the toughest assignment you've done, but yes.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, just going back, I remember when I was about 20, I went for a job interview and there was a lady, it was in corporate, and I don't do corporates. But every time she spoke, my whole body I would just feel like in bliss. And it was the weirdest thing. I'd never had it before and I've never had it after. But it was almost like it would make my ears tingle. It would just go through my whole body. So weird. And that was
How
just her voice.
beautiful. How beautiful. And you never forgot that.
No, because it was just so incredible. I just didn't want her to stop talking. I didn't get the job. I just, but it was weird, and because it came from a woman, like it was like it's hard to describe. It's almost like it was tickling me in my neck and just making me warm and glowing inside. It was weird,
I
very
wonder
strange.
if it was deliberate too, you know? Like, because she was in that space and able to just emit that to you. How beautiful. Wow. That's nice.
Anyway, that just came up.
That's
But yeah,
good.
absolutely. That's why I noticed as well, when I used to get depressed, then I listened to this really sad music. But now you train your body to be sad every time you hear that music. And I don't want to be sad anymore. So, I'd stay away from music like that because it doesn't lift you up. You need to deliberately choose the music that you want to listen to.
That's it. You deliberately choose. That's right. So you deliberately move yourself to a higher state, to a higher vibration. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And you can. But I think there were times, like I know for me, there were times I really needed to cry. And I'd put on the saddest movie I could find. And sometimes even now, like when I really miss her, whatever, I'll feel bad, but I'll give myself that time. I'll allow myself that, and I'll say, okay, that's it. You know, I'm not going to stay in this. I'm going to acknowledge it and then let it go. That's it.
Well,
Yeah.
losing a child is like, to me, must be one of the most difficult assignments to go through.
Oh, it is. It's a really big one. It's a really tough one. But you know, Natasha, what amazes me is how common it is. Almost 20% of parents lose a child. Yeah,
Wow,
I know. Yeah.
that's
And
really,
and for a lot of people, it does start them on a journey towards understanding what's really going on. Opening up to faith, opening up to realize that they're not alone, that their child is still very much alive, just not in physical form. And it's like cancer, actually. I mean, I had it too. And so I was her caregiver, but I also was a patient too. And I know that that journey can really open you up to learn more, to seek out alternative, therapies and things. Like I have men who come now to sound who never did any of this kind of stuff in the past. And they all say to me, I didn't really want to come. My wife told me I had to come. I'm like, look, if you're not happy, you can get up and go. It's okay. Meanwhile, not only do they not get up and go, but the session is over and they're still snoring in the chair, you know? It's like they needed the sleep. Sometimes people do fall asleep, which is what they need, and I just leave that.
yeah.
But no, the men love it, the women love it, and they learn a lot. So it's really through this, passing through the fire is how you grow. Yeah.
Do a lot of the parents struggle with survivor guilt?
Um, I can't answer for all the parents. I know that one of the factors that I have encountered that's huge is the manner of your child's passing. That's really big. And so that can have a huge impact on you. But when you look at even then at the bigger picture and you realize, like Chloe says it somewhere in the book, she's like, Mom, every death happens at precisely the right moment. You know what she told me, by the way, about near-death experience? She says, Mom, you didn't have a near-death experience. You had a death experience. You died. I'm like, you're right, Chloe. Because actually, when I came back, I was not the same person. I was not the same person. That was it. My life was going to take a different trajectory and I was not going to waste it. And all of a sudden, I was not the same. But I actually feel, I wonder if I would have had the strength to end that marriage if I hadn't had the near death experience. I might have stuck in it and just been miserable. That would have been awful. Yeah.
You mentioned it when you were flying through the air that you knew the marriage was over.
Yeah.
I think it was already done.
Yeah, it was already done. Yeah. Yeah,
It's
it was
it's
already done.
it's it's interesting that I was going to ask you that you flying, you're busy in the heat of the moment and decided your relationship's done.
Yeah, that was my
It's an
first
interesting
thing.
thought to have.
I
I mean, it's an
know.
interesting thought to have.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not like I'm dying, I'm hurting. No, my marriage is over
Yeah, yeah,
because he didn't do anything. I mean, he was he was calling. Sure.
I'm just looking at some of the notes that I made, and there's there's something that I took down. It took me 5 days. And I'm like a super good eater. And for these 5 days, I ate junk the whole time. I needed the salt. I was like, it's very, when you spend a lot of time communicating with spirit, it takes a lot because you have to really lift your vibration. It's one thing to lift it for a sound session, but it's another thing every day to raise your vibration that much. So over the course of 5 days, I took down this information from her, and she calls it the 12 steps to bridging. So you might have read that in there. And it's actually really cool. And sometimes I've done workshops just on these 12 steps to help people. So if somebody wants just the 12 steps, they'll be able to get that when my website is back up and running. But I just want to read to you number 1, because she said, Mom, all the steps can be done in any order. There's no order to anything except for number 1. The first one has to be first. And I was like, oh my God, what is she going to tell me, you know? And she says, all is as it should be. Fundamental to this initiative is the understanding that all is as it should be with the world. There will be much evidence to contradict that statement. Ignore it. This is the toughest step. It's called acceptance. All is as it should be. This applies to all things in life and death. Not only are there no mistakes in life, just lessons, but there are no errors in death. That's a huge thing to learn. There are no errors in death. Every life is appropriate and of the correct length. This fundamental knowing may be the subject of study during multiple lifetimes, or it may be known instantly. It requires the full acceptance of death as a part of life. That's number 1. So if you can get past that, oof, the rest of them are easy compared. Yeah, acceptance. That's tough. Yeah. But for a parent who's, learning to cope with this new life, it's like a different life. Your life before and your life after the passing of a child is a different life. It's a different life. But, really cool stuff happens. Like, I walk up the steps one day and I'm out on the sidewalk and I just randomly meet this woman. And we start chatting, and less than a week later, her son passes away. She knows nothing about all of this kind of thing, and yet she had just met me. And boy, oh boy, was that great that I was able to go for walks with her and talk with her and help her and at least listen, but I knew from where she was coming. Another time, I was doing a sound healing next door, and my teacher never comes to my healings. She doesn't come. She's like, she's sort of like, I go to hers, but she never comes to mine. But this day she came, and we were supposed to be 12 people in the room, and everybody started canceling and other people started coming, and the whole thing was so crazy that I lost track of the emails at the end. And we ended up being like 5 people sitting around on these couches. And one of the ladies said, I've just come from the palliative care. I'm with my mother, and I have a feeling she's going to pass really soon. Now, my teacher was a caregiver in palliative care for many years. So she knows, she has accompanied many people to the end of their lives. So she knows what to say, how to help them and all that. So here we were, we said, forget the sound session. And these 2 women started a conversation, and this one saying how she has no idea what to say to her mother, and this one saying, I can tell you what to say to your mother. It was so blessed. It was so divine. It was the most incredible meeting we ever had. Meeting is over. She goes back to palliative care. And just a few hours later, her mother dies. And she had time to say all of this stuff. So it's so beautiful. She's like indebted to this woman for having opened her up. And I'm like, wait a minute. The one time she comes, everybody else cancels, so we don't do a sound session anyway. It's just so beautiful. You just have to trust, and then the magic really happens. It really does. Yeah. I have a lot of stories like that.
I think you're spot on, and a lot of it's got to do with being open and seeing the signs because it's all in front of you all the time.
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time. When I went to Arthur Findlay, that college in England, I said to Chloe, I was walking outside, I said, what am I doing here? Like, why am I here? This is crazy. I shouldn't be here. I have no business being here. And she said to me, Mom, when you see the peacock, you will know that this is the right place for you to be. And this is like November. There's no peacocks. It's freezing cold. And this place is a huge, 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 monstrous, like castle kind of a place. So you get lost all the time. And so I go inside and I'm trying to find my room and I get hopelessly lost and I go up this staircase and boom, there it is, a huge peacock on the wall. I said, thanks, Chloe. I know now I'm in the right place. Yeah. So it's like this constant thing going on, like the iced cappuccino. It's just, our lives are intertwined like this. They're not separate at all from our loved ones in spirit. That's why you can call on them all the time. Oh boy. Our grandmothers, they love us so much. They want to help us so much. All of our ancestors.
Yeah. When you hear Chloe, do you hear a voice or do you? Because I know, like, they say like it's telepathy on the other side, but you actually hear a voice, or is it more just the words appearing in
I
your brain?
hear a voice in my head. I actually hear a voice in my head. Chloe used to smoke, and rarely now, but I used to get the smell of smoke, like really strong, where there was nobody smoking around. That would be a really clear indication. They use smell a lot too. But it's like, I don't know. Like, how did I get that message this morning? I just knew. Pick up your pen and start writing. That's why I say, if you want to connect with your guides, just sit. If you want to use music and it helps you relax, do whatever works for you. But have a paper and a pen because you're going to you may think you have nothing to say too, but once you start writing, the words will just flow. It's amazing. The words will just flow. Yeah. But I do hear her. Yeah. And sometimes I have a bench where I go and sit. And like one day, I sat there on her birthday. Her birthday and the day she passed. Those are two really, really prominent days for you to connect with your loved ones. So this is her birthday, and it was in November, and the weather was awful. And I'm sitting on this bench, and I hear nothing. So I'm like, Chloe, it's freezing. I'm cold. Forget it. It's not happening. I get back in my car and I just hear, Mom, you have the right roadmap. I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about, but okay. And the next day I'm at a girlfriend's house and she's got this wall of books and she says, pick a book. And I zero in on this one particular book and she says, oh, I have 2 copies. You can have a copy. And it's a book by Cryon and it's called The Road Home. I mean, all of this is about having the right roadmap. I take the book home, I open the book, and what's it about? It's about a man, it's a metaphor, he's on this journey home. And he has a roadmap. Aha! But the roadmap only gives him the next step. And that's what I always used to say. When I ran my business, I always used to say, forget business plans. I only know the next step. I take the next step and the next step and the next step. Because if I try to see everything, it's so overwhelming. I'll just paralyze myself out of fear that I'm going to make mistakes. But if I just go to the next step and the next step, and that's what this book is all about. It's called The Road Home by Cryon, and that's his map. And every day he opens it up, and the next step is there. And she told me, Mom, you have the right road map. Like, I didn't know what that meant. So sometimes it takes time for them to put all the pieces of a sign together, which is fun, Yeah.
Well, I love that advice. I think to the viewers, like I always have a notebook and pen. But yeah, because you wake up in the morning, you might have had an amazing dream and you forget what it was about, and it could have huge symbolism.
Absolutely. And have that by your bed. You might get up in the middle of the night and write, and especially early morning, you may wake up with something. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, Andrea, I know that your website's down, but when it
Yes.
is up, how do people connect with you?
Well, I think they can always send me an email right now. They could send me an email, and anybody who wants a PDF of my book is welcome. And the email is Courey, which is Courey 1212. So that's the numbers 1212. That's for another time to explain why 1212. Courey 1212 at gmail.com. And yeah, when the website's up, I don't know what we're going to call it. Maybe Sound by Andrea. I don't know yet. But I'm actually going to have it done right, and it'll be there eventually. Yeah. But people are welcome to contact me, and they can get on the email list and join us for Sound on Zoom, and it's always free.
That's amazing. And that's a gift, really, because not a lot of people offer that for free. So thank you.
Well,
Okay, I'll post all those links below. So
okay.
just before we go, do you have a message for our viewers?
Do I have a message? You know, I received a message one day from Spirit, and I wrote it on a piece of paper. And this is what they said. I remember it. And they said, at the end of your life, you're going to realize that you really had nothing to worry about. Oh, at the end of your life, you're going to realize you had nothing to worry about. We worry a lot. We have a lot of fear. And really, we don't have anything to worry about. And the moment you actually realize that, guess what happens? You stop worrying. And of course, you know, you bring forth what you gaze upon. So the minute you say, yeah, you know, I had nothing to worry about. I worried a lot when I had my business. I worried every day. I worried for my kids. And when I received that message, I'm like, gee, I had nothing to worry about. I'm loved, I'm protected, I'm surrounded, I'm well guided. It makes all the difference to know that.
Thank you. That is awesome. And no, you're right. I mean, I'm not going to add anything to that. That's really beautiful. Well, Andrew, thank you so much. It was lovely to hear your story in person. I'm going to finish reading your book hopefully tonight.
Yeah.
So, to the viewers, if they want to actually go get a copy, it's a really amazing book.
Good.
Very heartfelt.
Yeah. That was the only way to do it, was to make it real. And now I'm going to start on the sequel. Yeah.
Okay, well, good. Something to look forward to. All right. Well, thank you again for sharing.